The warning light on observation post 447 had never turned red before. For 300 years, it had blinked a calm blue, watching the small planet called Earth and its primitive inhabitants. The Mirathi officer named Tevra stared at his screen with all four of his eyes wide open. His hand shook as he reached for the emergency communication button. Something was coming out of Earth's solar system. Something impossibly large. Tevra had spent his entire career watching humans. He had seen them build small ships that crawled between their planets like insects. He had laughed at their slow progress. The Council had told him that humans were dangerous but stupid, that they needed to be kept locked inside their own system for the safety of the galaxy. He had believed every word. Now he was not laughing. The ship that appeared on his sensors measured 12 kilometers from front to back. It was bigger than any vessel the Galactic Council had ever built. Energy pulsed from its dark hull like a heartbeat, and each pulse contained more power than Tevra's entire observation station could produce in a year. The ship moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. Its name appeared on the communication channels in the human language. HFY. Tevra sent his message to the Council with trembling fingers. Then he sat back in his chair and watched the giant ship pass by his station. It did not stop. It did not acknowledge him. It simply continued forward, heading toward the heart of galactic civilization. On the bridge of the Baikdu, Fleet Admiral Park, Yuna stood with her hands clasped behind her back. She was 63 years old, with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much death. The bridge around her hummed with quiet activity. Officers moved between stations, speaking in low voices, doing their jobs with perfect discipline. Commander Kim Do-hyun approached her with a tablet in his hand. He was younger than the Admiral by 20 years, tall and serious, with a face that rarely showed emotion. "Admiral, we have detected 17 observation posts tracking our movement. The nearest one just sent an emergency transmission to the Council headquarters." Yuna nodded slowly. "Good. Let them send their messages. Let them panic. Should we respond to any of their communication attempts?" "No." The Admiral turned to look at the main view screen, which showed the stars stretching into lines as the ship traveled at speeds the Council believed impossible for humans. "They watched us for 3 centuries. They can watch a little longer." Do-hyun hesitated before asking his next question. "Do you think they know why we are coming?" The Admiral's expression did not change, but something dark passed through her eyes. "They know exactly why we are coming. They have known this day would arrive since they murdered 12,000 of our people on Kepler Station. They just did not believe we could ever make them answer for it." The Baikdu was not alone. Deep within its massive hull, 10,000 crew members worked in perfect coordination. Engineers monitored the great engines that bent space itself. Weapons officers checked systems that could crack planets open like eggs. Pilots sat ready in hundreds of fighter craft, waiting for orders that might never come. Lieutenant Lee Hanna worked in the intelligence center, a dark room filled with screens and the soft sound of alien communications. She was young, only 28, but she had spent her entire adult life learning the languages and secrets of the galaxy's ruling species. Now she listened to their fear with grim satisfaction. "The Veluxi are calling for an emergency session of the full council," she reported through her communication link to the bridge. "The Thessi are demanding immediate military response. The Sorvathi are arguing for diplomacy." She paused, listening to another transmission. "Admiral, the High Counselor himself, is awake. He is asking what humanity wants." "He knows what we want," Yuna replied. "He has always known." The construction of the Baikdu had taken 40 years. It had been built in secret, hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids in Earth's outer system, far from the watching eyes of Council observation posts. Thousands of workers had dedicated their lives to its creation. Some had died of old age before seeing it completed. Others had given everything they had, knowing they would never live to see the ship fly. Chief Engineer Oh Sung-ho had been one of those workers. Now 70 years old, he walked through the engine room with tears in his eyes. He remembered being a young man, welding the first plates of the hull together, dreaming of this moment. He remembered his father, who had died on Kepler Station, and his grandfather, who had watched humanity's first attempt at reaching the stars destroyed by mysterious equipment failures. 3 generations of his family had worked toward this day. The council had thought they were so clever. They had locked humanity inside their solar system, blocked their technology, sabotaged their ships. They had believed that humans would never discover the truth, would never find a way to break free. They had been wrong. Admiral Park Yuna looked at the star map displayed before her. In 72 hours, the Baekdu would arrive at Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. For the first time in 300 years, humanity would stand before the species that had imprisoned them, but they would not come as prisoners. They would not come as beggars asking for scraps of freedom, thought they would come as equals. Or they would come as conquerors. The choice belonged to the council now. All stations report ready, Admiral, Commander Kim announced. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. It was not a warm expression. It was the smile of someone who had waited their entire life for justice and could finally see it approaching. Maintain course and speed, she ordered. And send a message to Earth. Tell them the Baekdu flies true. Tell them we remember Kepler. Tell them the long night is finally ending. The message traveled across space at the speed of light, reaching Earth within hours. On every continent, people stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. They knew what was happening. They had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer afraid. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as the Titan-class warship continued its journey toward the heart of the galaxy. The Grand Chamber on Nexus Prime had stood for 10,000 years. Its walls were made of crystal that sang when light touched them. Its ceiling showed the stars themselves, a living map of the galaxy that the Council ruled. For centuries, the most powerful beings in the universe had gathered here to decide the fate of worlds. Today, that chamber was filled with fear. High Counselor Mithril stood at the center of the room, his ancient body supported by a floating platform. He was the eldest of the Veluxi, a species known for their wisdom and their 4 arms. He had lived for over 800 years and had seen empires rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like the images floating before him now. The human ship filled the display, its massive hull blocking out the stars behind it. Even as a simple image, it seemed to radiate power. "This is impossible," whispered the Fessi representative, a creature covered in hard scales the color of blood. His name was Corvin, and he served as the Council's defense minister. "Our intelligence said the humans had no ships larger than 200 meters. This thing is 12 kilometers long. How did they build it without us knowing?" "Perhaps our intelligence was wrong," replied Ambassador Yelani of the Sorvathi. Her skin glowed with soft blue light, flickering with her emotions. Unlike the others, she did not seem afraid. She seemed sad. "Perhaps we only saw what we wanted to see." "What is that supposed to mean?" Corvin demanded. "It means we have watched humanity for 3 centuries and learned nothing about them." Yelani's light shifted to purple, a sign of deep thought. "We called them primitive. We called them dangerous. We locked them in their system and told ourselves it was for the greater good. But we never truly tried to understand them." Mithral raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The chamber fell quiet. "The question before us is not how this happened," the High Counselor said, his voice tired and old. "The question is what we do now." The human vessel will arrive at Nexus Prime in less than 70 hours. We must decide our response. Our response should be obvious. Corvin slammed his fist against his podium. We should destroy them before they reach us. We have fleets. We have weapons. We should have eliminated this threat centuries ago when we had the chance. And commit genocide? Yelani's light flared bright white with anger. Destroy an entire species because they built a ship that frightens us? Is that what the Council has become? The quarantine protocol exists for a reason. Aggressive species must be contained before they can threaten galactic stability. The humans have already proven themselves violent and dangerous. Now they have built a weapon of unimaginable power. What do you think they intend to do with it? The argument continued for hours. Representatives from all 12 ruling species spoke, each with their own opinion. Some wanted war. Some wanted peace. Some wanted to run and hide. Fear made their voices sharp and their words careless. None of them noticed the small probe that had slipped through Nexus Prime's defenses. None of them knew that every word they spoke was being recorded and transmitted back to the Baekdu. Lieutenant Lihanna sat in her dark room, listening to their panic with cold satisfaction. She had spent years studying these species, learning their languages and their secrets. She knew their histories, their crimes, their lies, and she knew that most of what they told themselves about humanity was wrong. They are arguing about whether to destroy us, she reported to Admiral Park. The defense minister is pushing hard for an immediate attack. The Sorathi ambassador is trying to argue for diplomacy, but she does not have many supporters. Admiral Yuna nodded slowly. She was sitting in her command chair, a cup of tea growing cold in her hand. What about the High Counselor? He has not stated his position yet. He seems uncertain, afraid. Good. Uncertain enemies make mistakes. What else are they saying? Hana listened for a moment longer, translating the rapid alien speech in her head. They are talking about the quarantine protocol. Some of them seem genuinely confused about why we were locked in our system. They believe the official story about our aggressive nature. Most of them were not alive when the decision was made. The Admiral set down her tea and stood up, walking to the main view screen. The ones who know the truth are careful not to speak of it. They have been lying to their own people for 3 centuries. Commander Kim approached from his station. Admiral, if they decide to attack us before we reach Nexus Prime, we will be outnumbered significantly. Their combined fleets include over 2,000 warships. I am aware of the numbers, Commander, and you are not concerned? Admiral Park turned to face him. There was something in her eyes that made the seasoned officer take a step back. The Baekdu carries weapons that could destroy a small moon with a single shot. Our shields can withstand direct impacts from nuclear devices. Our engines can outrun anything in their fleet. She paused. But more importantly, we carry something they cannot fight against. We carry the truth. The truth about Kepler Station? The truth about everything. Chief Historian Cho has prepared a complete record of the Council's crimes against humanity. Every sabotaged mission. Every blocked technology transfer. Every life that was lost because they decided we were too dangerous to be free. The Admiral's voice grew hard. When we reach Nexus Prime, the entire galaxy will learn what their leaders did to us. And then we will see how many species want to stand beside them. In the Grand Chamber, the debate had finally reached a decision. High Counselor Mithril called for a vote on military action against the approaching human vessel. The vote was close. 8 species voted to attack. 3 voted for diplomacy. 1 abstained, but before the order could be given, something unexpected happened. The human ship sent a message directly to the council chamber. It was short, only a few words, but it changed everything. We know what you did to Kepler Station. We have proof. The galaxy will judge you." The chamber fell silent. High Counselor Mithril's ancient face went pale. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the masters of the galaxy did not know what to do. Chief Historian Cho Yoonji had spent 30 years searching for answers. She had been a young woman when she first heard whispers about Kepler Station, stories that did not match the official records. Her grandmother had died there, along with 12,000 other humans, in what the council called a tragic accident. But Yoonji never believed it was an accident. Now, she stood in the main conference room of the Baekdu, surrounded by Admiral Park's senior officers. The lights were dim, and her face was lit by the glow of hundreds of documents floating in the air around her. Each one was a piece of evidence. Each one was a piece of the truth that had been hidden for almost 300 years. It started before the quarantine protocol, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to reveal. When humanity first developed faster-than-light travel, we thought the galaxy would welcome us. We thought we would find friends among the stars. Instead, we found the council. She pulled a document to the center of the display. It was written in an alien language, but her translation appeared below it. This is a trade analysis prepared by the Veluxy Economic Ministry, dated 312 years ago. It studies the potential impact of human technology on galactic markets. Yoonji paused, letting her words sink in. According to this report, human medical advances alone would have reduced profits for 3 major pharmaceutical corporations by over 60%. Our manufacturing techniques would have disrupted 17 different industries. Our energy technology would have made several species' primary exports worthless. Commander Kim leaned forward in his chair. They locked us in our system because of money? That was part of it. Yoonji pulled up another document. But fear played a role too. The council had never encountered a species that advanced so quickly. Most species take tens of thousands of years to develop interstellar travel. Humanity did it in less than 2 centuries. They did not understand how we learned so fast, and what they did not understand, they feared. So they created the quarantine protocol, Admiral Park said quietly. Yes, they told the galaxy that humans were too aggressive, too dangerous to be allowed into galactic society. They said we needed to be contained for our own good, until we learned to be more peaceful. Yoonji's voice grew bitter, but the truth was much simpler. They were afraid of what we would become if we were allowed to grow. She pulled up the final set of documents. These were different from the others. These were marked with security codes that had taken Yoonji 15 years to break. This is the truth about Kepler Station. The room fell completely silent. Kepler Station was our most advanced research facility. It orbited Jupiter and housed 12,000 of our best scientists. They were working on a new type of engine, one that would have allowed us to travel between stars in days instead of weeks. If they had succeeded, humanity would have been able to bypass the Council's blockade entirely. And the Council could not allow that, Lieutenant Lihana said from her seat near the back of the room. No, they could not. Yoonji enlarged one of the documents. It showed a communication between the Thessi Defense Ministry and an unnamed agent. 3 weeks before the station exploded, a Thessi operative infiltrated our solar system. He used a small ship disguised as debris, too small for our sensors to detect. His mission was to sabotage the station's reactor core. The official report said it was a design flaw in our equipment. Chief Engineer Oh Seung-ho said, his old voice cracking with emotion. My father designed that reactor. He spent the rest of his life believing he had killed all those people because of a mistake he made. He died thinking it was his fault. It was never his fault. Yoonji pulled up the saboteur's report to his superiors, written after the mission was complete. The explosion was deliberate. The Council murdered 12,000 humans to stop us from escaping their prison. Admiral Park stood up slowly. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. How long have we known this? Our intelligence service discovered the first hints 15 years ago. I was brought in to verify the evidence 10 years ago. We have spent the last decade gathering every document, every communication, every piece of proof we could find. Yoonji looked at the Admiral directly. This is why the Baekdu was built. Not for conquest. Not for revenge. We built it so that we would be strong enough to demand justice. And if they refuse to give us justice? Yoonji did not answer. She did not need to. Everyone in the room understood what would happen if the council refused to acknowledge their crimes. Security. Chief Bae Ji-hoon had remained silent throughout the presentation. He was a quiet man, built like a mountain, with scars on his hands from a lifetime of protecting others. Now he spoke for the first time. My grandfather was on Kepler Station. He was a security officer, like me. He was 24 years old when he died. Ji-hoon's voice was flat, controlled, but there was fire behind his eyes. My family has spent 3 generations wondering what happened to him. 3 generations of grief. 3 generations of lies. Every family on Earth has a similar story, Admiral Park said. The quarantine did not just kill the people on Kepler Station. It killed our dreams. It killed our future. It kept us trapped while the rest of the galaxy moved forward without us. She walked to the front of the room and looked at each of her officers in turn. In 48 hours, we will arrive at Nexus Prime. We will present this evidence to the galaxy. Every species will see what the Council did to us. Every species will have to choose a side. The Admiral's voice grew hard as steel. Some will stand with the Council. Some will stand with us. But no one will be able to claim ignorance anymore. The truth will be known. And if the Council attacks us before we can present our evidence? Commander Kim asked. Then we will defend ourselves. And the Baekdu will show the galaxy exactly how dangerous humanity can be when pushed too far. Admiral Park turned to face the main view screen, where Nexus Prime was slowly growing larger. For 300 years, they have called us primitive. They have called us weak. They have called us animals that needed to be caged. She smiled, and there was no warmth in it. They are about to learn how wrong they were. The Baekdu dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly where Admiral Park wanted it to appear, directly above Nexus Prime. Close enough for every being on the planet's surface to see it blocking out the stars. Panic spread across the capital world like fire. Ships fled in every direction. Defense platforms powered up their weapons. Millions of beings looked up at the sky and saw something they had never imagined possible. A human warship, larger than anything in the galaxy, hanging over their heads like the fist of an angry god. The Council sent 17 separate demands for explanation. The Baekdu ignored all of them. Instead, Admiral Park sent a single message. The Council will come to us. We will receive your representatives in 6 hours. Come prepared to answer for your crimes. High Counselor Mithril wanted to refuse. Defense Minister Corvin demanded that they attack immediately, before the humans could do whatever they were planning. But Ambassador Yelani spoke the truth that none of them wanted to hear. Look at that ship, she said, pointing at the display that showed the Baekdu in all its terrible glory. Look at it and tell me honestly that we can destroy it. Look at it and tell me that fighting is the wise choice. No one could say those words, because they all knew that the human ship could probably destroy half their fleet before they could even scratch its hull. 6 hours later, a shuttle carrying the Council representatives docked with the Baekdu. The airlock opened, and for the first time in 300 years, the rulers of the galaxy stepped onto a human vessel. Security Chief Bae Ji-hoon met them at the entrance. He stood like a statue, his face revealing nothing, as the alien dignitaries filed past him. He did not bow. He did not greet them. He simply watched them with eyes that had seen the graves of his ancestors. The corridor they walked through was designed to intimidate. The ceiling was 10 meters high, built for giants. The walls hummed with barely contained energy. Human crew members stood at attention along both sides, their uniforms perfect, their expressions cold. None of them spoke. High Counselor Mithril had visited thousands of ships in his 800 years of life. He had walked through the halls of the greatest vessels ever built by the Council species. But he had never felt as small as he did now. Shuffling through this corridor, surrounded by humans who looked at him like he was already guilty of something terrible. The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest room on the Baekdu. It had been built for exactly this purpose, for the day when humanity would stand before the galaxy and demand justice. A long table stretched across the center of the room, with seats for each council representative on one side and empty chairs on the other. Admiral Park was already there, standing at the head of the table. She did not rise when they entered. She did not offer words of welcome. She simply waited until they had taken their seats, and then she spoke. "You know why you are here. We demand an explanation for this aggressive action," Corvin shouted, unable to contain himself. Entering council space without permission is an act of war. Funny. The Admiral's voice was flat. "I do not recall the Council asking permission before entering our space. I do not recall the Council asking permission before locking us in our own solar system. I do not recall the Council asking permission before murdering 12,000 of our people on Kepler Station." The chamber went silent. "Yes," Park continued. "We know about Kepler Station. We know everything." She raised her hand and the lights dimmed. Holographic displays flickered to life around the room, showing documents, communications, and evidence that had been hidden for 3 centuries. The council representatives watched in horror as their own words, their own orders, their own crimes were displayed for all to see. Economic reports showing the true motivation behind the quarantine protocol. Park pointed at each display in turn. Communication ordering the sabotage of human research stations. Payment records for the operative who destroyed Kepler Station. After-action report confirming that the explosion was successful. She paused, letting the weight of the evidence sink in. "Shall I continue? We have enough material to keep us here for days." Mithral's ancient body seemed to shrink in his chair. This was before my time. I had nothing to do with these decisions. But you knew about them. You all knew. Admiral Park leaned forward, her eyes burning into the High Counselor. You inherited a system built on lies and murder, and you chose to maintain it. You could have freed humanity at any time. Instead, you kept us caged because it was easier, because it was profitable, because you were afraid. What do you want? Corvin's voice had lost its anger. Now he just sounded defeated. Justice. The Admiral straightened up. Not revenge. Not destruction. Justice. Lieutenant Yun Tai-Wu stepped forward. He was the Baekdu's diplomatic officer, a young man with a calm face and careful words. We've prepared a list of demands. They are not unreasonable. Full disclosure of all Council actions against humanity. Acknowledgement of the crimes committed against us. Compensation for the families of those who died on Kepler Station and elsewhere. And most importantly, immediate removal of all restrictions on human travel and trade. In other words, Ambassador Yelani said slowly, you want to be treated as equals. We want to be treated as what we are, Admiral Park replied. A species that has survived everything the galaxy threw at us. A species that built this ship in secret while you watched us and laughed at our primitive ways. A species that could destroy your civilization if we chose to, but instead came here to ask for what is rightfully ours. Mithral looked at the evidence floating around the room. He looked at the human officers standing with quiet confidence. He looked at the massive ship that surrounded them, a ship that should have been impossible, that should not exist. That proved everything the Council had believed about humans was wrong. If we refuse? He asked quietly. Admiral Park did not hesitate. Then we will broadcast this evidence to every world in the galaxy. Every species will see what you did. Every species will know the truth about the Council that claims to lead them. And then you will face not just us, but every other species you have wronged over the last 10,000 years. She smiled, and for the first time, there was something almost warm in her expression. But I do not think you will refuse. I think you are smarter than that. The Council representatives looked at each other. They saw the fear in their colleagues' eyes. They saw the truth they had avoided for so long finally catching up with them. They saw no way out except forward. We will consider your demands, Mithril said at last. You have 24 hours, Admiral Park replied. Use them wisely. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. Every day, representatives from both sides sat in the Grand Assembly Hall and argued about the future of the galaxy. Every night, the Baekdu hung in the sky above Nexus Prime, a constant reminder of what humanity had become. The Council tried everything. They offered partial apologies. They promised limited reforms. They suggested gradual integration over the next 100 years. Each time, Lieutenant Yun Taiwu shook his head and repeated the same words. Not enough. On the 14th day, something unexpected happened. Ambassador Yelani of the Sorvathi approached Taiwu during a break in negotiations. Her bioluminescent skin glowed with soft green light, a sign of sincerity among her people. May I speak with you privately? She asked. Taiwu nodded and led her to a small observation room. Through the window, they could see Nexus Prime spinning slowly below them, its cities glittering like jewels. I have studied your species since I was young, Yelani said quietly. I always believed the stories about human aggression were exaggerated. I argued against the quarantine protocol many times, but I was always outvoted. She paused, her light flickering with emotion. When I saw your ship for the first time, I expected to feel terror. Instead, I felt hope. Hope? Taiwu raised an eyebrow. Hope that someone had finally come to hold the Council accountable for its sins. Yelani turned to face him directly. The Sorvathi have our own grievances against the Council. We are not the only ones. Many species resent being ruled by those who claim wisdom but practice cruelty. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that humanity does not need to stand alone. If you are willing to work with us, with others who share your desire for change, we can transform this galaxy into something better. Her light shifted to bright blue. Not through conquest, through cooperation. Taiwu studied her for a long moment. This was not something they had planned for, but it was not unwelcome. I will speak with Admiral Park, he said finally, but I believe she will be interested in what you have to say. The final document was called the New Charter. It took another week to write with input from humanity, the Sorvathi, and 3 other species who had quietly aligned themselves with the cause of reform. When it was finished, it represented the most significant change to galactic governance in 10,000 years. Humanity would become a full member of the Galactic Assembly, with all rights and responsibilities. The quarantine protocol would be officially declared illegal. A new independent body would be created to investigate past crimes and ensure no species would ever again be subjected to what Earth had endured. The families of those who died on Kepler Station would receive compensation and a formal apology. Most importantly, the evidence of the Council's crimes would be made public. Every species in the galaxy would learn the truth. High Counselor Mithril signed the charter with trembling hands. He looked old now, older than his 800 years. The weight of his people's sins seemed to press down on his shoulders as he made his mark. "This is not the end the council wanted," he said quietly. Admiral Park took the document and added her own signature. "Perhaps not, but it is the beginning of something better. The council you inherited was built on lies and blood. The council you leave behind will be built on truth and equality. Your descendants will thank you." Mithril looked at her with tired eyes. "You could have destroyed us. You had the power. Why did you choose mercy?" The Admiral considered the question for a long moment before answering. "Because we remember what it felt like to be powerless. We remember being trapped and afraid and alone. We remember watching our people die while the galaxy did nothing." She glanced at the document in her hands. "We built the Baekdu so that we would never feel that way again. But we did not build it to become the very thing we fought against." The ceremony was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as humanity stepped out of the shadows and took its place among the stars. On Earth, people gathered in the streets and wept with joy. For the first time in 300 years, they could look up at the sky without feeling like prisoners. As the Baekdu prepared to leave Nexus Prime, Chief Engineer Oh Sung-ho stood on the observation deck with Admiral Park. The old man had tears running down his weathered face. "My father would have wanted to see this," he said. "All those years he spent blaming himself for Kepler Station. All those nights he stayed awake wondering what he did wrong. He died never knowing the truth." "He knows now," Park replied gently. "Wherever he is, he knows. They all know." She turned to address her senior officers, who had gathered to mark the occasion. "Commander Kim Do-yeon, Lieutenant Lee Hana, Lieutenant Yoon Tai-woo, Security Chief Bae Ji-hoon, Chief Historian Cho Yoon-ji, and hundreds of others who had dedicated their lives to this moment. What we have accomplished here is historic," she said. "But it is not finished. The galaxy will not change overnight. There will be resistance. There will be species who resent our rise. There will be challenges we cannot even imagine yet. Then we will face them together," Commander Kim said. "As we always have." Park nodded slowly. "Set a course for Earth. Our people deserve to celebrate with us. And then we begin the real work, building a future worthy of everything our ancestors sacrificed." The Baekdu turned toward home, its great engines lighting up the darkness. As it accelerated away from Nexus Prime, passing the observation posts and patrol ships that had once watched humanity like jailers, a message went out to every human settlement in the solar system. The long night is over. The dawn has come. We are free. 50 years later, the historians would write about this moment. They would call it the Great Reckoning, the day everything changed. They would tell stories about Admiral Park Yuna and the crew of the Baekdu, about how a single ship forced the galaxy to face its sins. But the people who lived through it would remember it differently. They would remember the feeling of looking up at the sky and knowing, for the first time, that they were no longer alone. They would remember the pride of standing tall after centuries, of being forced to kneel, and they would remember the words that were carved into the hull of the Baekdu before it was placed in permanent orbit around Earth's moon. A monument to humanity's journey from prison to freedom. We do not seek to rule the stars. We seek only to walk among them as equals. But let none mistake our desire for peace as weakness. We are humanity. We endure, we remember, and we rise. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter that night, as if the universe itself was welcoming humanity home at last.